back with another episode of Self-Directed. I'm excited about today's conversation because, I've in this series on education, we've been talking a lot about, higher education, college, high school, elementary school, like changes that are taking place. And today we've got on awesome guest, Grant Nissly, who's the founder of MyMBA, an alternative MBA program at a fraction of the cost. I'll let him share more about that. But Grant, I'm going to turn it over to you. Would love to, for you to introduce yourself.
Hey, Mitchell. How's it going? Thanks for having me on. This is awesome. Good to talk to you again. Yeah, so my name's Grant Nissly. I'll just give a quick backstory on myself. I graduated college, undergrad, 2016. I majored in accounting and financial management at Bucknell University. And I've been involved in public accounting since then. So I've been doing some auditing and consulting around accounting. And I was kind of looking for my next step, thinking about where to take my career next. And an MBA had always been in the back of my mind. My dad got one. A lot of my family members got one. So it just seemed like the next step. It just seemed like the progress of how you build your career. So I started to look down that path, and I was thinking about an MBA, and I was really discouraged by the cost. And I was just running some of the numbers, thinking about what this would look like, what my future would look like. And I'm very okay with risk, but I'm not very comfortable with debt. And seeing myself go 200K in debt was not something I was looking forward to with an MBA.
Yeah. I can imagine that's not, without the house, that's a mortgage.
Exactly. And it makes sense for a lot of people, but I didn't think it made sense for me at the time. And I was doing a few other things on the side. I started a blog, grantnissly.com, where I was basically just playing around and writing about things I was interested in. So I was, reading books about statistics and writing a summary about it. And I was kind of just writing on my personal blog and exploring education by myself, just seeing what I could learn. And I found myself doing that a lot more than I was prepping for business school. So that's kind of when the pandemic hit, and when I was spending a lot of time writing on this personal blog and kind of exploring what that would look like. And once the pandemic hit, I really came up with the idea of MyMBA. So essentially the idea of MyMBA is that we're taking business school classes online, and we are kind of using a personal brand and a personal website to formalize that education of using these massive online open courses to their maximum benefit, essentially.
Yep. So
that's kind of what led me up to my MBA, but I can give you the full rundown of my MBA. Or
we'll get into that. There's some questions that stand out to me right out of the gates. The first one being about your own career trajectory. You mentioned early on you were looking for kind of your next step. Did you feel like there were the next rungs up on the ladder were things that you couldn't access without an MBA? Or was it more like there's some big, hairy, audacious goal, you're not sure what it is, but an MBA felt more, like a clearer path to that? Or like, what was kind of the motive behind the MBA? I mean, other than, just like a lot of, people in finance and the ambitious college grad working in that space, that seems to be a common theme. But like, what was your personal motivation for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was researching the MBA, a lot of the people who go down this path is it's kind of a way to pivot their careers or explore different options. So that was kind of my goal. I built up a base with a CPA and an accounting background, and I had the fundamentals, but I was hoping to maybe pivot into consulting or banking or maybe even into tech or something like that. And, those are all outcomes out of an MBA. And, that seemed like a good option to make that switch. And it is a great option for a lot of people. But I was just kind of thinking, could I make that switch and could I do that pivot on my own and kind of using the resources on the internet and kind of paving my own way and showing other people my skills.
Yeah. So where within that that kind of evaluation period of, hey, I think I need to go get an MBA, or this is the route that I need to go. Now I'm researching them. I see the cost. Like, where was the idea of, hey, I could just build this on my own? Where was that formed?
So, yeah, that's a great question. I was basically leading up to the pandemic. So early February of 2020, this is a very new idea. We're just getting off the ground. Yeah. So, leading up to the pandemic, I found myself writing a lot more, just kind of losing interest in the traditional MBA path. And then once the pandemic hit, that was kind of the nudge I needed, where I was thinking, if these classes are going to be on Zoom in the fall when I would be starting, or if the pandemic lasts for another year or two, that's not going to be worth my money. And maybe it was the nudge I needed to push me down that path to do it this way. But that's basically how it came about. And, once I started thinking about it, it started to formalize how I could make it into a legit business and make it beneficial for a lot of other people.
Yeah, that's awesome. So like right out of the gates, you saw it as more of a business than just kind of your own personal journey.
Yeah, that's interesting. When I first was thinking about it, it was essentially for me, how this is what I want to do, and how could I build something around this that is the perfect product for myself.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I've seen the quote a few times, like the best way to get product market fit is if you're building it for yourself. Yeah. And I was just thinking of it as I've always been interested in startups and tech and stuff. So I was just thinking about it as, wow, this is a product I could build around my specific interests.
Yep.
And this is what I want, and I couldn't really find the perfect alternative out there. So
yeah. I love that. I love that. There's not a better alternative. Why not just build it? I'm trying to solve this problem for myself. It might as well be me that solves it. Like I love that approach to your career, not just like to entrepreneurship in general, but like, this is what I think I need, and I don't see a better path to it. So I'm going to create my own. So that's awesome. Another question is like, once you kind of arrived at the point where, hey, this might be a business, I know this is something that I want, there might be other people out there. What steps did you take to go, formalize the idea to get other people's input on it?
Yeah, that was kind of a pivotal step in this process. My older brother was really helpful in this, because I kind of was just texting him the idea, and he was like, wow, I really like that idea. It's a great idea, but you need to make this into a formal idea. Mm-hmm. So, for the next month or so, I put together a pitch deck, and I formalized the exact offering that I was going to give to people, and just made it seem and be as real as possible. And that was kind of the 0 to 1 push, where it was, here's an idea that I've thought about. Now I have to go out and basically sell this idea to people. So for the next 3 months, I was giving Zoom pitches to all my friends and people in my network who I thought would be interested, and was basically getting them on a call and saying, hey, do you want to come together and do this with me? I believe in this idea, and do you want to join me and see if we can make this real? And it was a struggle. It was a lot of no's. It was a lot of calls where people said, I don't think that would work. But I got together this group of 8 people, including me. So it's not a lot to start, but it's something we have now, and we have this group together that's working on this goal, and we're just experimenting with it and seeing how we can make it the best experience for them and for all of us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, all it takes is kind of that small initial group of people that are bought into the idea. What do you feel like were some of the biggest objections you came up against? I know that, in the line of work that we do, like with Praxis, we're always, I feel like, dozens, not just like once or twice, but at least dozens of times per week, I hear all the traditional arguments for, well, that may work in theory, or I like that idea, but at the end of the day, this traditional route still seems like a better route. It seems like the tried and true route. So like anytime you break from the norm, I feel like there are all of these good sounding arguments, whether they hold water or not. They're like good sounding arguments that people fall back on. And it's difficult to bridge and like see a different path. What were some of those things you came up against?
I saw a lot of it with people with a finance background and in finance, just because it's a traditional kind of industry where it's very much pedigree and your background focused, which definitely makes sense. So I got pushback from people in finance that were unsure about if they could kind of make it their own way, doing it this path. But kind of my pitch to people was that this is an asymmetric bet. This is essentially a very low cost with a huge upside potential. So, our fee is really small, and we're able to keep it really small because there's very little administrative costs. We're not paying professors or really paying for the courses. So it's kind of just low cost, and the opportunity is huge. So I was able to bring people in because, it was an asymmetric bet where best case scenario is you could excel your career. You could make that pivot. You could land a job at an MBA caliber position at a fraction of the cost. But definitely got a lot of pushback and a lot of no's.
Yeah. I'm sure that's the case, but like, I love what you just said, because when you think about, oh my gosh, not just the time, like, traditional MBA that takes time. It takes time, especially, especially if you're going to do the full in-person thing, which, is, and be like working full time, which, maybe is a little bit different right now with pandemic going on, but the cost, like, what do you have to lose right now, especially? Like, I love that bet right now where it's like, best case scenario, you're going to be doing your MBA program online with a front page institution. If you get in, like you're going to be racking up debt. Like, that's just such a powerful thing. It's like factoring in all, not just the cost, but factoring in the opportunity cost of your time, like factoring in, the difference between just like building a really strong network with 8 people right now who are like all committed to growth together versus like a bunch of people you may not meet in person this year.
Yeah, exactly. So,
do you feel like, being somebody who's gone the traditional higher education route, comes from a family who, has gone that next step?
Yeah.
It sounds like, several people have MBAs. Like, was there some kind of like unlearning process for you or transformational period in your own kind of quest for the next step, like where you felt like you were changing your mind about higher education? Like, this doesn't have to be the next step. There may be an alternate route. Like, talk me through kind of that change of mind from like the MBA, I have to have it, that is the best way, versus, going down a not popular path, a contrarian.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. I think so much has changed in the last 10 years. And, when you compare it against your parents' route, it's not the same, and it doesn't really line up. So there's taken some unlearning in the fact that the internet has opened up the world to anyone who wants to put in the time and put in the effort to differentiate themselves. And I think that's the biggest part of the unlearning that you're saying. It's kind of recognizing that there are other ways. I've thought about it like this a few times, where there was a time when Harvard or Wharton or those schools, they had the knowledge, and they really had the best practices, and they had the best professors, and you kind of had to get admitted and go through that process to learn what they had to offer. I mean, obviously there were books and everything, but they were the best professors. But in the past 10 to 20 years, I think that's completely changed. The internet has really just opened up knowledge to anyone who's willing to search and really demonstrate that they've obtained that knowledge. This is where I get a little more radical, I would say, where I kind of
you're safe here.
Okay. I sometimes will say that the university is a bit of a third party, where it's the students and the employers are the yep. entities being matched, and the university is the third party that is kind of helping with the matching, doing the filtering. And, I think organizations like Praxis and what MyMBA is trying to do is trying to bridge that gap, where we're bringing students who are trying to learn and kind of matching them with employers one-to-one. And you see with a lot of tech and a lot of industries that get shaken up by the internet, it's just removing middlemen and kind of bringing the consumer.
Oh, lost you again. All right. And we're back.
Awesome. Sorry about that.
Right.
Got the service issues here. But yeah, I was saying, I don't know where I got cut out, but I kind of think of the university as a third party, where it's helping with the matching between the student and the employer, and people like Praxis. And what MyMBA is trying to do is trying to fit that student with the employer at a more efficient kind of matching.
As you've I'm sure that you've had conversations with quite a few people already as this has gotten off the ground. As you've had conversations with businesses, employers, people on that other side of the market, what has been the reception of this idea?
Yeah, it's been good. So we have every other week, our members meet with an industry partner, is what we call them. So they're industry leaders who kind of give up their time to come and meet with us and give their insights into the industry. And we had a director from Citi in investment banking on a call on Sunday, and he was kind of talking to us, and he was really excited about the idea. And his perception was, building this website and showing people that you have this knowledge and interest is kind of like a Trojan horse into building out your network. Yep. Where you now have the opportunity to reach out to someone, and you just have an excuse to build up that network and start talking to them, because people really want to talk, especially now. Yep. People are lonely, and they don't really see people. They want to get on the phone and hear your story. And a lot of those cold outreaches will go unanswered, but sometimes they'll be heard. And you can build that network. But yeah, I think back to your original question, MyMBA is new, and we're understanding exactly what we're offering. So I think it's definitely going to be more difficult for certain types of jobs with MBA positions, like a Goldman Sachs or a McKinsey or something. But I think there's a lot of these tech companies and more boutique firms who will understand what we're trying to bring to them, and that we're able to bring people who are high caliber and very talented to them.
Yeah. You just made so many points that I want to break down. It's
okay.
I'm going to try to remember them as I go through, but I love the point about the Trojan horse. And for a couple of reasons, like one is like, I think about this podcast like that sometimes. It's like, I'm very interested in the changing landscape of higher education, in personal finance for young professionals, in building your own career, like using entrepreneurship as the way to build your own career versus just, traditional employment, all these different ideas or whatever. And it's nice to have an excuse to be able to reach out to somebody who's doing something that excites you and said, hey, I've already got this thing going. I want to talk to you. I want to hear more about your ideas because I want to share it with other people. If I'm interested, maybe other people are interested, but like, that's how we met. And
yeah, exactly.
I think that the fact that works validates the idea, kind of the base level of MyMBA. So sort of like what Praxis is like, if you want to be known for something, start building a better signal, start putting that out into the real world, because, even if everybody you reach out to says no, like the people who are searching for what you have to offer, eventually chances are they're going to stumble upon what you're doing. And when they do, they're going to be like, holy shit, this was built just for me. And that's a really cool thing. I remember when I saw, I don't even remember how we got connected on Twitter. There was some thread and I immediately was like, man, I love what you're doing. The other point, the other point that you made was about MBA type jobs. And there's a little bit of pushback I want to give on that. Is like the floor of an MBA, the floor of the type of outcome you need changes fundamentally for somebody who's like just focused on going and getting the skills, but can avoid the debt. Where it's like, I mean, when I think about my own career, there are definitely MBA style skills that I've focused on building myself over the years. And you don't necessarily have to go pay $200,000 to get those, but there are different careers outside of finance, outside of accounting, outside of, being a product manager at a startup, where some of those cherry pick skills are really valuable, or things that could help level up somebody. And if you don't have to make $200,000 a year because you're not in over your head financially, it opens up so many different opportunities, which I love that freedom of mobility, I guess, that a more direct alternative offers.
Definitely. Sometimes I don't like to admit it to myself, but when I was going down the MBA path, I kind of saw myself in 4 years and having all this debt and maybe settling for a higher paying job that was maybe a little soul sucking and not really what I wanted to do, for 4 days of travel a week or something. And kind of being forced into that route because I had all this debt to pay off. So it's definitely an option that we give, that you can build up those skills and start applying to those MBA caliber jobs. But not have the debt load in the back of your mind when you're thinking about it. So people go to business school and end up going to nonprofits and things like that, where the pay isn't as good. And I think this is a great alternative for someone like that, because it's, if you're trying to break into that sphere and you want the skills, it gives you a lot more freedom, like you're saying.
Yeah. I think the other really exciting thing is like, going and working at Goldman Sachs, or like getting the product manager job at a front page startup, like within the world of finance, MBA type elite, the elitism that's kind of in there, like those jobs opportunities are often kind of the exciting things. This is, my opinion, obviously. I think there's good data to support that, but those are kind of the sexy things. But what I think is often overlooked, whether by intention or as a result of this option all too often being eliminated because of student debt, is going and starting your own business. there are definitely things like the MBA search fund or whatever for your most elite universities. And usually, there's a process. If you're in $200,000 of student debt, you may not be the best candidate for a search fund to go run a company. But if you're walking out with that student debt and you have that pressure, that time clock ticking to go out and have a financial outcome, it almost removes the opportunity from your option set for you, that you can't just go bootstrap a business when you've got student debt to pay.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like I was saying at the beginning, I'm very debt averse, and I think of it like that just because I want to keep my options open. I want to be able to go down a path that I find interesting when I can, and it can be suffocating with the debt. So
yeah,
definitely.
I personally relate. I mean, I picked up the phone 2 weeks before I was supposed to start law school and my MBA 5 years ago. And it was, there was another opportunity in front of me, but at the end of the day, it was just that like pressure of like, how certain do I have to feel about making this decision in order to justify, the next 10, 20 plus years of a financial commitment? Like, you have to be, for me, it was like, I need to be like 110% certain, not 99%.
Yeah.
like unless if it's under 100, I think that there may be, I'm willing to bet on that 1% still offering a more free, less stressful alternative. So.
Exactly. One of the points we stress, and I think outside of the cost, and kind of why I named it MyMBA, is because it's about forming the program and taking the classes that you want to take and you think are most applicable to your career, and being able to show that interest. For instance, one of our current members is interested in sustainability. And in her current career, she's not really touching on the sustainability aspect so much. So day one of MyMBA, we are setting her up with sustainable finance classes. And she's taking those and being able to show and demonstrate to the world through her website that this is something she's interested in. And day one, she's able to be, once she starts creating some content around the sustainability class, she's able to reach out to people in sustainability positions at companies she wants to work at, and immediately start focusing on that goal and not having to wait 2 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like you don't have to, I think there's a common misconception embedded in what you're just talking about, is that you don't have to wait until you're done to get started.
Yeah.
The bar is pretty low. Go write 3 blog posts about the topic you're excited about and use that, parlay that into that introduction.
Exactly.
That says so much more about your fitness and credibility on that topic than just having a general, like, I have an MBA, I happen to be interested in this, I have no proof that I'm interested in this or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That's such a core belief that we have. And just kind of piggybacking off of that, I think of, and this is very relevant to Praxis, the university system as it is. How long ago was that set up? Was it, the 4-year system? Must have been 200 years ago where that year and the framework was established. And it's the same for master's degrees. It's kind of been embedded in the system that this is how it's done, and this is how it's always been done. And I think coronavirus and just the internet in general is starting to break that up and unbundle it. Where can you learn exactly about what you want to learn in 6 months and really pivot your career that way? It doesn't have to be a 2-year program, for instance.
Yeah. And you make a good point. Like, a lot of the model is a little bit archaic, in terms of like where the structure came from or whatever. But let's even put that to the side. One of the advantages of the traditional university higher education system came from the scarcity of information. Like the fact that, 50 years ago, you needed to go somewhere in order to access information that was esoteric, and you didn't have a route to it. And even if you did have a route, like it was many cases not financially feasible to go expose yourself to all of the technical information and ideas that you needed in order to gain mastery in a subject or to gain some experience learning about that. I think that's a common reason why apprenticeships were so popular is it offset the cost a little bit of putting yourself in proximity to an area of specialty. But today you can learn anything online. You have access to whatever you want. And this is what leads to one of my bigger beliefs about what you're doing. I think it supports that, is what we're doing, and just the future of learning in general, is that access to information by itself, though, it's not sufficient. You have to go do something with that access. You have to take advantage of that access. You have to, if you're on your own, you have to curate what information do I need? Then you have to, you have to go gather all these facts, then curate it. Then you have to study it. You have to apply it. You have to do something with that information, transform it into a signal. And I think, the big belief here is that is more difficult than going to college or going to a preordained program. That's more difficult.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's so hard. One of the things I was running into at the beginning of my MBA is just this idea that these massive online open courses, the MOOCs, they've been around for, I think, since 2013. So they're out there, and that information is out there, but it's really hard to complete them and to get people to complete them and put in the work, because, you don't have as much as the social pressure. You don't have the teacher that's going to call on you in the back of class and make you answer the question. So there's definitely roadblocks there, and that's been on the top of. Oh, all right. Yeah. So one of the things we were thinking in the beginning is how can we create that accountability around completing these MOOCs online, because they've been out there for the past 7 years or so. And if you want to, you can go out and take them and learn them. And I think that's been a interesting and fun challenge with my MBA. And what we're experimenting with is bringing people together to take these classes on their own, building a website to create accountability around the courses, and then bringing industry leaders on calls and presenting your work to these industry leaders so people are held accountable and actually complete the work, Yeah.
I think that what you said is there's an idea I have about the future of education based off what you said. Is like, these MOOCs have been around for a long time. Why hasn't everybody flocked to those? Why hasn't everybody flocked to Teachable and Coursera and all these other online learning platforms too? And I think that, much in the way that it's difficult to go and get committed to a new fitness routine. If you show up to the gym and you don't have a workout planned, and then you have to plan a workout and do all those things, there's just such high transaction costs to going and finding those things and then holding yourself accountable and then credentializing what you've learned to some degree. But it also misses the social component. I think what you said is like, people don't want to just take classes online. They don't want to just like sit in their basement alone and like read about, some dense topic or whatever. There has to be some type of social component of it. And I think that the part that traditional higher education misses on as well is it misses that last mile of application. It's it has all this theory, and at the end of the day, it's test your knowledge of a theory through an exam or some something that's a little bit removed from the market, and you're not actually putting something out there in the real world that's subject to the scrutiny of the market.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point. Um, and that's just, I kind of think of the Substack revolution. It's
Yeah.
kind of like this year where everyone's wanting to write online and create content for their own. And it's a new way of thinking about learning and testing ideas and testing in the marketplace, like you were saying. If you have a Substack and you're gaining followers because you are knowledgeable and interested about sustainability or higher education or whatever it may be, the marketplace will give you feedback and help you learn on that.
Yep.
When I was first starting to write, I was really interested in statistics, and I was reading a lot of Nassim Taleb and understanding that and understanding his statistics. And when I would write about that, I would just get great feedback from people on Twitter or people reaching out to me and helping me understand the concept. So it's kind of just, it's just like the internet is just opening up who you're able to talk to and who you're able to interact with. And it's an amazing tool. And I think higher education and education in general is one of the last places to be touched by the internet. And I think there's going to be a lot of disruption here soon.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time. There are so many possibilities. I love what you're doing. I look forward to seeing where it goes in the future and all the other innovation happening in the space. So thank you again for joining, sharing more about, what you're building. I will drop links to the website. What is that, by the way? So listeners can find it if they're not near.
Yeah. So the MyMBA website is makemymba.com. You can find me on Twitter, mostly at Grant_Nissly, or on my website, grantnissly.com. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. This was awesome.